Is it too early to look at running back rankings for draft season in fantasy football? Absolutely not. We're going to break down our top 24 running back rankings with tiers. Before we get to those rankings, let me remind you that you can find not only our rankings for redraft and dynasty and best ball, but so much more if you go to flockfantasy.com/endgame. Check that link down below. Join now for 30% off, and you can also get access to our exclusive course available only on that site on how to dominate your draft. We have an 8-part course. We've done it for dynasty, and we're doing it for redraft. So check that out coming soon and help you win on draft day. All right, now let's get to those running backs. And the top tier is going to be the guy who might be in contention for the top overall pick in your fantasy football draft. Now, Chris, I was about to have some beef with you. I can't believe the guy's barely been drafted into the NFL, and you're putting Bijan Robinson at number 1 overall for running back. And then I realized that I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I don't get this argument at all. I mean, go back and look at the running backs recently, and there's not a lot of them. They've been drafted inside the top 10. You like Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott. Like they were awesome in year one, like beyond awesome. Like, top 1, top 2 running backs, awesome. He's gonna be awesome. It's him and CMC. They're the class of the field at running back, so they're in their own tier here.
I mean, you could just basically pull out the lazy old, well, he hasn't even played yet. He's a rookie. I mean, really, because rookie running backs never do well in the NFL. Is that what we're going for here? There's no reason not to pick him number 1. The guy who, maybe is contention, the only other guy we have in this tier, even the top tier, is Christian McCaffrey. And we know the risk that he comes with, which is why a lot of people weren't taking him number 1 last year. They were taking JT. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey, great offense, great player. But Bijan Robinson, just as great, maybe, just as talented and younger and without the injury history. And I know people are going to say, oh, he's on the Falcons. We've already talked about this on our live draft stream. That's the perfect landing spot for him. So, yeah, I'm taking Bijan Robinson as the number 1 running back. Am I taking him number 1 overall? Well, that might be a different story. Now when we get to the next tier, yours is pretty small here. You only got 2 players. You only feel like these are the 2 guys that belong in this tier, and these are the only 2 guys you might consider as first-round draft picks.
Yeah, I do, because Austin Ekeler looks like he's going to be back with the Chargers. They didn't do anything in the draft to make you worry about his role. He's basically playing for a contract because he's, wants a new deal. This is the last year of his deal with the Chargers, so you got to still feel great about Austin Ekeler. And JT, he's an elite running back. I think with Anthony Richardson, they're just going to run the ball even more this year, more opportunities to score. So I feel like these 2 guys are just a little bit above the next tier of guys, but not quite to the first tier of Bijan and CMC.
Yeah, with Taylor and Ekeler, I agree. I have them 3 and 4 just switched, and it's really a close decision here. The reason I slightly prefer Taylor, despite what happened last year, and if you look at the way the season ended for both of them, big difference. But gotta remember, with Ekeler, new OC in town, think they're actually going to open things up. They drafted Quentin Johnson at receiver. They're going to pass the ball more. I really think they finally do it. This is the year where they don't baby Justin Herbert because Lombardi's gone. All right, so it doesn't really mean anything with Ekeler, but the regression that was supposed to happen last year and it didn't happen because he kept scoring touchdowns, maybe a little that happens this year. And then with Taylor, some people are saying, well, he got a running quarterback. That's going to hurt the running back. It actually is going to help the running back. Something else we also talked about during the NFL draft. This Colts team should be significantly better. Taylor, it was just a bad season for the Colts overall, but I'm not too worried about him. Now, I still have Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry in this tier along with those guys. I think they should be drafted just after them, but I still think they could be guys that carry your team. So when you talk about anchor RB, you draft one early and then you wait. I feel good having either of these guys. These are obviously both guys who have been the number 1 running back in fantasy in different years. And you look at it last year, Saquon Barkley, top 5 fantasy score in PPR leagues at running back. And until he actually breaks down, if it ever happens, I'm not going to doubt Derrick Henry. And what was it, 2-3 years ago, we're saying this is it, the end is coming. No, until it actually happens, I still consider him a stud running back. On to tier 3, a lot of similar players here for us. You have Derrick Henry down at 8. Tell me why you feel like he doesn't belong even just a little bit higher. I mean, you got him below guys like Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard.
Yeah, and look, I agree with everything you said about both Saquon and Derrick Henry. Obviously, Derrick Henry, I feel like last year we did start to see signs of the toll that all these touches have taken on him. He had a lot of weeks where he was really bad, honestly. Like he still had those big games, but he had those really, really down weeks that I feel like we didn't get a lot the last few years. And Saquon, there's a couple things I'm a little nervous with about Saquon. Number one, a potential holdout. He's saying he's not going to sign his franchise tender, and I'm not sure the Giants are going to be able to reach an agreement with him. But even if he plays, he's coming off a season where he had well over 300 touches. We know his past with his injury history. I just worry that maybe he's a little less efficient this year too, and a little worried about the potential for injury there. But when it comes to Jacobs and Pollard, look, Pollard, big-time winner of the NFL draft. The Cowboys did basically nothing at running back except draft the 7th-round running back who's 170 pounds. Like, Tony Pollard is going to be a monster. We saw it down the stretch last year. I think people are way too low on him. And Jacobs basically going to be this whole offense again because you got Jimmy G there. He's basically playing for a contract now. He is playing under the franchise tag. So I think he'll be just as motivated. And then, of course, I end my tier with Ramondre Stevenson. Another big winner, I think, of the NFL draft. The Patriots didn't do anything at running back. Damien Harris is gone. All they really did was bolster this defense. They're just going to rely on this running game. He caught 69 passes last year. They didn't really do a whole lot at wide receiver. I think it could be another huge year for Ramondre in terms of pass catching. So these are the guys that I feel very, very good about. About finishing as a running back one, this season. They have a little bit of concerns that I don't have with the first 4 guys, but they, right after them, feel very solid and very safe, or at least as safe as a running back can be.
Yeah, and I think that's fine to say. These are the guys you feel pretty comfortable with rolling out there every week for hopefully all season long as your RB1. If you're going that anchor strategy or you're just waiting a little bit to get your RB1, I think these guys are all going to be solid again for the reasons you mentioned. And we both have Pollard in that same tier. You're a little higher on him, though. I got him at 9. You're at 6. And again, you call this basically weeks ago, way before the NFL draft, right? Tony Pollard going to the moon as soon as Zeke got cut. Of course, watch them just re-sign Zeke and do it all over again like last year. All right, now I want to call out a player here that we both have in the same tier, but I feel like we have to talk about Jamir Gibbs because I'm just going to be honest, I kind of still don't really know where to put him because I feel like we should be super high on him based on the fact that we know the Lions want to run the ball. We know they drafted him to give him a ton of touches, but I don't know how comfortable I feel having him this high. I mean, do you feel like we almost are obligated to put him as an RB1, or do you really think that he could be, maybe what DeAndre Swift wasn't ever able to be?
Can he be what Swift wasn't able to be? That I'm not sure, but I do feel obligated to have him as an RB1. I mean, the Lions just drafted him with a top, 15 pick or whatever it was, something crazy like that, and Swift is gone. And when you look at this tier for me, I've got Najee, Chubb, and then Gibbs. Najee and Chubb, I feel like, they're going to get the volume, they're going to get the work to be low-end RB1s. I don't think they have the ceiling of the other guys we talked about. I do think Gibbs actually has a higher ceiling than those guys, but I also think he has more risk. So I put him in this tier because honestly, he's a tough guy for me to rank. But I think the potential for him to be an RB1, and I think the ceiling is there to at least have him at this spot.
Yeah, I think we have to keep him somewhere right around there. I know I don't personally want him as my number 1 running back. I feel much better as a high-end RB2 right now, which is basically where I have him. I mean, we'll see either way, right? I mean, Alabama running backs is kind of all or nothing, right? They're either studs or they just completely bust in the NFL. Same thing with Lions running backs. And then I know one thing stands out here, kind of like a sore thumb, and that's Kenneth Walker. Is at the top of my tier, and we're not even close to getting to him on your rankings list. Look, I don't want to rehash this whole thing, but I would say I know people are going to probably overreact a little bit to the Charbonnet selection. Yeah, I get it. He was drafted fairly early, right? 2nd round draft capital, same as Kenneth Walker. but they drafted him. They even said this. Pete Carroll himself has specifically spelled this out. They drafted him because he's such a good receiver and he's going to fill that pass catching role. Yeah, he'll still get some early down work, but I feel like this is still Kenneth Walker as the 1A. And also what I said that I like about Walker is the fact that he's not a guy who really needs a ton of volume, right? He makes those big plays. This offense is going to be much better when you realize that they not only added Charbonnet to, take some relief off of Walker in the pass catching role that really was never suited for him, but also JSN at receiver. Remember Shane Waldron now coming over to run the offense here. We're going to see a pretty good Seahawks offense, so I think I still take a chance on Walker leading the way here. No, maybe he doesn't have as high a ceiling as he would if they didn't draft any running back, but I still think he's going to have his moments. And when you look at the rest of the guys on this list, I don't necessarily feel any of them are going to be significantly better, if at all. All right, now we're on to the 5th tier of running backs here. We're in the teens. I'm a little surprised that you're higher on Damien Pierce than I am. I thought I was higher on him. You have concerns, but you still have him as a top 15 back.
Yeah, another big winner of the NFL draft. The Texans didn't really do anything of significance at the running back position. Obviously, not a guy that's going to catch a ton of passes, but he's going to get a ton of volume. This is kind of my tier of guys where I feel good that they're going to get volume. It's going to be there, but they might not be either A, as efficient as the guys above, or in a situation as good as the guys above. So I feel good about these guys here. Like, you're going to get the volume, going to get really high floors with these guys. Every now and then when they score a touchdown or two, they'll have some big weeks. So that's what this tier is for me. It's the guys where I feel like, okay, the volume is there, the floor is there. They probably need touchdowns to have a real good ceiling, but you should feel good about them, as your RB2.
Yeah, and it all boils down to opportunity. I always talk about this. Volume is king in fantasy. When you're looking at running backs, you've got to get those touches. The strongest correlation in terms of fantasy points for running backs, it's just touching the ball, being on the field. You have to do that. Even if a guy doesn't have a great yards per carry average, he can still put up fantasy points by getting in the end zone, by getting 20 plus carries and gets those yardage. And so yeah, Pierce wasn't super efficient last year, but he's the guy there in Houston. Not worried about Devin Singletary. And that also goes for somebody like Breece Hall. We're skeptical how efficient he's going to be coming off an injury, but he's still going to be the guy there in New York. Zonovan Knight was just a jarb, right? Just another running back. Izzy Abanikanda, I like him, but he's just going to be a backup, a third stringer here probably at this point. So Breece Hall may not be what we are hoping Breece Hall would have been pre-injury, but he's still going to put in enough volume that, yeah, I think he's going to be a startable RB2. And then we round out our top 24, and I see you've got Travis Etienne all the way down to 19. Again, a little surprising. I've never been an Etienne guy, but man, you're a lot lower on him than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, these are my tiers of guys who either A, I'm really not sure what to expect from them this year, like DeAndre Swift, or B, they're stuck in what I think is going to be more of a committee than we want. So with the Tank Bigsby selection in the draft, I really think that signals that Etienne is not going to be the workhorse we saw down the stretch last year, and he's not really a pass-catching back, at least for the Jaguars' concern. I think that's going to hurt him. And yeah, we've gone over Kenneth Walker a ton, but I feel like it's going to be much closer to a 50-50 than people think. Aaron Jones, we know he's going to split with Dylan, and what does he really have left? And then, Monty and Sanders. Okay, maybe you can argue Sanders is going to get the volume, but I just don't think in this offense it's going to be enough. So these are just kind of the guys that either in the committees or just like Swift, I'm just not really sure. Like, on one hand, I think Swift can be great, but on the other hand, he might be stuck in a committee. So these are just kind of like the guys I'm just very uncertain about. If they're my RB2, I feel okay about them, but not great.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at guys like I have Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, you feel like these are guys who maybe have already peaked, not necessarily going to be in line for anything better than they've already done this year. Definitely not Dalvin Cook. Looks like he's had his best seasons already. Only really surviving and make this list because the Vikings were like, we're okay on the cap room now. We don't have to cut him. It's like, okay, that doesn't inspire too much confidence, but he should still be the lead back at least. And then Sanders, like I said, he's going to be the lead back, but how good is that Carolina offense going to be this year? And then Monty, I was really happy and excited about him until they drafted Jamir Gibbs. So these are all guys that are probably going to be boom and bust, right? They'll have their moments, they'll have their big weeks, and you'll think maybe there's a revival coming, and then they'll probably let you down some weeks too. So solid, but not spectacular. So yeah, we have a rookie at the top of our running back rankings, but how do the rest of our rookie rankings shake out after the NFL draft? If you missed it, check it out here.